This week we're going to the North Pole, followed by some heavy philosophy. Welcome. And here we are, looking at the North Pole. Today, of course, most youth will grow up thinking there's nothing in the North Pole. Personally, I had globes as a child, as I'm sure many of us did, and my favorite globe was one that had raised continents. You could pass your hands over the continents, and to somewhat of an accuracy as far as elevation goes. These mountains would rise up and down, a big ridge for the Rockies, of course. And my favorite was the top. There was a nub or a continent at the top, no doubt. And I guess this would have been in the very end of the 70s or early 80s. And a very similar nub to what we see here in Mercator's map, but as if the whole thing had just been frozen over, but otherwise a very similar outline, and also reminding me of a board game or a kind of techno game, again in the 70s and 80s, called Simon, having these same kind of colors and these sections that you would press. And I'm getting a little off topic, but this map has always seemed very precise to me, showing Greenland with its mountain ranges, free of ice and snow and rivers, all named, and little towns here at the tip. In other maps, even more towns, but in this one we see 2 towns, emphasized by castles in red. And not too far away, we see Russia depicted as Rus, full of castles representing cities. Today we just put a dot representing a city on our maps. And here, Iceland, full of castles, again towns and cities. And even Friesland, an island half the size of Iceland, which today they tell us is gone, no longer on maps. And why would you just put a fictitious island on a map and cover it with towns? Why go to such lengths? And why put this fictional island up at the top left-hand corner of this map? It seems like it must have been pretty real. And forget about this little island. What of this massive island? And as time goes on, the connection, or almost connection, to Greenland disappears. And eventually the whole mass of 4 sections, or 4 giant islands, disappear as well, as we see in the Google falsity. Their admitted composite digital map. And really, we don't need satellite. Here they tell us the Copernicus satellite, Landsat, and I don't buy it. I think you could just fly a plane over all this, and I don't think there are satellites up there. Recently they told us a bunch just came crashing down. They always laugh and say, oh, no problem, very normal. And does this landmass really exist? Is there anything up here? This whole thing looks very manipulated, and I think we may be seeing the outline, and they have just done one of their little tricks, blotching it out, but we may be seeing a partial impression of it. Here we can actually see this line that we've looked at. Amazing that it's coming in so clear. Usually I approach it from the other side. And it's this line that somebody has left us showing us what it really looks like down here. And at some parts it looks a lot better. We can follow it for a while, and it's more clear than the garbage that they give us here. This is all just a falsity. The whole damn chunk is just a big falsity. All of this. And then here, I don't know why, perhaps because that's part of their deal, playing the role of evil, that they must leave a slice of truth available. And here I think that's what we're seeing here. And I touched on this years ago, and they still haven't removed it. So it kind of tells me that they are obligated to leave the path, or at least a little part of it, available. To leave the truth in plain sight. And you know very well you could show this to your friends and family and they would just shrug it off. Their eyes would glaze over and seem to go to a distant place. But nonetheless, we care in this community. And that's what I wanted to talk about. This is a channel that is actually not just planning, but is actually on an expedition to reach the 90th parallel up here. And very exciting. He is somewhere around this pin, and his name is Ryan Zem. I'll give you a look at his channel. Let me get all this crap out of the way. Here we go. So, he's on a mission to reach the 90th parallel, and he's charted out a route. Unfortunately, I have pictures of his route, but they haven't uploaded yet. I took him this afternoon. This is the chickens this morning, having a little drink, and one of them laid this beautiful egg this morning and just dropped it in a random place. Well, anyway, I don't have to show it to you. His route, I believe, is up here in the direction of the Black Lake. Oh, I wish I did have those pictures. And he's essentially planning on just trekking across all of this. Roads pretty much end. Here we go. So it looks like this is one of the last roads, this 905. And this is pretty extreme land here. Just shredded. And I'm very excited for him. I think it's a great idea and exploration. I'm not sure if I think that it's the best route to take. Sorry, I'm really distracted. A lot of anomalies out here. And that's part of my point, is even if he takes a route that I really wouldn't take, I am certain he'll discover something. And for all we know, the landmass is actually closer than we even think. I think just to push forward in unknown territories, one is bound to discover something unknown. And who knows? But this really reminding me of Siberia and those northern regions, just shredded, just thick with swamps and almost looking like the land is floating on the water rather than the water being in the land. But just a mess, an absolute no man's land. And I think crossing through this could be disastrous. And I completely support an exploration to these northern regions. But walking through here, I think, may not be the wisest option. A wonderful journey and exploration just for the sake of it. But really we need to get up higher. And that may require flying in to a certain point. And I have considered this for some time, what the best option would be to see if there are lands up here in the north. And my thoughts were to land in the most northern town or city in Greenland. What is going on in Greenland? I really know very little about Greenland. I'd like to go off on a tangent and research Greenland and really see what the deal is with the government and really see if I can just go there if I can even live there, maybe. Maybe it's a paradise. And clearly we saw towns up here on the old map, up here. And the tip of Greenland connects, or at least very close, to the tip of this pygmy island, part of Hyperborea. The whole thing surrounded by mountains, as if artificially made mountains. And this, I think, is the surefire way to determine if there are lands to the north of Greenland. And I think we can get to Greenland. It shouldn't be a big deal. And here, I think these little islands that they're showing us may be some of these. And what I've done is taken this program here, and I've been playing around with an image of Mount Meru, as we can see, and I've kind of turned it on its side and superimposed it in the center here. And I have Greenland to work with, and I'm trying to establish whereabouts this landmass would be. Is it so large? Is it perhaps smaller? But nonetheless, it's kind of still the same. We need to go to the most northeasterly point of Greenland, and from there go north. Magnetic north. Just fire up that compass. Of course, we know that this rock in the center is said to be magnetic. And even our mainstream agreeing with this, but giving us a different story. And how interesting that lore tells us of this magnetic rock. Better than the scientific story, honestly. I mean, if the core was magnetic, it just doesn't make sense that on a globe model we would have something pointing up at the top of the ball. If anything, it would point to the center or down, according to their model. But nonetheless, not the point. I do think we should be able to fly to Greenland. You know, people are just flying all over the world, this country and that country, and I would like to go to Greenland. What is the big deal? Perhaps I'll start a GoFundMe, and first I'll look into the cost of a ticket to Greenland. And even if we could simply get to this tip with a good high-powered camera or even a telescope, we should be able to see for 100 miles. And according to this old map, I don't think it's more than 100 miles to the next piece of land. So I think I'll leave it there for a minute. I did want to explore a little bit, but I'll reserve that for another time. When I start exploring, it could turn into hours. And I just found some really nice places, and I'd be willing to bet that there is not a bunch of snow up here. This is just BS. This is just scribbling out the whole landmass here. Just a joke. Just clearly a cover-up. I was just thinking about something that Howdy had said today. He was asking his viewers if anyone had noticed some kind of a shift. And the truth is, I have noticed a shift. The smallest tasks have become very heavy. Kind of like things have been made into slow motion. The energy is very thick. I think the energies would be good for doing Qigong. This thickness. The thickness is referred to in ancient Taoist texts as the Qi, and the air is like liquid in old Taoist thought, resonating with energy. And now I feel as if the energies are very thick with Qi, and it makes for difficulty in doing focused, energy exerting tasks. I've barely finished my sheetrock and mud, and I'm so relieved. It seems like it's been such a battle for the last couple months. Right to the end, right to the last little piece of sheetrock and screw, tape and mud, feeling as if it would kill me. And making videos has been the same. Just not wanting to sit down in one place for more than 5 minutes. Unless I'm doing nothing. Now that's the other side of the coin. If I would allow myself to do nothing, the energies are wonderful. And I'm absolutely loving the energies in that respect. And how long will I resist? I don't know. I'm kind of caught in between two worlds. I must finish my project. Next, I need to do some tongue and groove sealing, and then I'll be done. Just a little bit of trim, a little paint, and my fixtures, and all the stuff that I think is kind of fun, really. Kind of like moving in, mostly. Sure, I'm glad I'm not doing anything bigger. I'm glad this building is not more than 400 square feet. Not 1 square foot more could I handle, along with all the other things I'm working on. And again, I'm glad Howdy brought this up, kind of seeming dreamlike and something strange that we might not want to bring up, but I think important, and I'm glad he did. Matt from Quantum of Consciousness brought this up about 3 weeks ago, and I completely agreed with him then as well. And he was saying how all he really has is the responsibility of his cats. It seems like all he does is spend all day running errands to get things, and the day is over. And I agree. This project should have been done long ago in the old world that I used to live in, which was only 4 years ago, it seems in my mind. And so almost as some kind of duty, I pass this on the way they both did. And I pose the question to you. Have you noticed a shift? And I'm glad I've had the opportunity to experience the good and the bad. If this is going to continue, then I'll change my whole approach to living. Plan for long term. Even the smallest thing can suddenly turn into an hour or two. But if this is the new reality, we could plan accordingly. And I am. And I do kind of go with these flows. I feel as if I want to rewrite my whole life. And I am. I'm planning, dreaming. And really, it wouldn't be much different. But there needs to be little adjustments. I do work way too hard. And it upsets my pets. And I know they care. And there's no reason we need to beat ourselves up. And I took a little vacation. A little one-nighter in the city. Saw a couple old friends. Ate some Indian food. Sog paneer, one of my favorites. And it just wasn't sufficient. Although I got a nice hotel that was welcoming of Chief, it just wasn't enough. It just felt temporary. I've never been one to enjoy a vacation, really. I mean, if I really liked the place, I would just want to move there. The idea of a vacation implies that the rest of one's life sucks, and I don't like that. I'd prefer to build a life that felt more like a vacation, and that is what I've done. But a lot of things are missing, like people, but otherwise, it's like I've been camping for over 10 years. The never-ending camp. But at this point, I've decided to get a van to explore sites, taking more actual footage and documenting my findings in person. Even having all my gear in a van will be a great treat. Having my bed and a shelf and a charging station would completely change my life. Would be better than anything I could imagine. Better than living anywhere. Although I do love my base camp. A nice travel rig is everything that's missing in my life. I used to live in a van, and even before that, in a truck with a camper shell. And I loved it. Anywhere I pulled up I was at home, and I could travel anywhere. If I was slightly tired, I would rest and keep driving, and like the turtle, which I felt like I was a turtle in the shell of the van, ultimately travels faster than the speeding hare. A nice, comfortable, steady pace. And when I had a van, I felt sorry for all the other drivers that didn't have vans. It was absolutely essential that they get to their destination. They weren't prepared to weather out a night. They could freeze and die. And if they did want to rest, they would have to get a hotel room. And these days, the price of a hotel is a monthly payment on a vehicle. And that brings me back to the big picture. What matters? I feel like I ask it over and over, subtly, maybe directly. But what really matters? What are we going to do, if anything? I said in a past video, there are 3 options. Either just roll over and continue as if nothing has come to be, no new knowledge, and even with new knowledge, letting it go and just accepting. And I think there is a place for just accepting. Perhaps it's okay to just know. At one point in my life, all I wanted was just to know. And the second option, as I stated in the past again, would be to try to change the current system, the current paradigm. And the third option would be to create a whole new system. And that could be a new country. I don't know how difficult that would be. Certainly a city could be built. We could turn my 20 acres into a city. If there was interest, it would certainly have a coffee shop in it. And would that work? Could a city of people who think independently from the system exist? Would it be allowed to exist? Teaching, having its own academia, and maybe even currency. Perhaps a hybrid would be the best option. And I don't know, as always. But I think it's worth asking, very simply. Frankly, I don't think it's important to even leave the system completely. Still engaging in the good parts of whatever's left, but simply detaching from the very simple things. And living is really easy once there is food production in place. And this is the oldest thing we have, food production. And if we don't produce our own food, we're subject to whatever they give us, and we'll put anything in our bodies. And it's the same with medicine. If you don't understand herbs, or just Chinese medicine, for example, then you'll be subject to Western remedies and have very little say or give very little thought about other options. And I think this world is wonderful, even if we realize we've been lied to, even if we see the destruction of past glorious civilizations all around us. I think it's always been wonderful. Sure, its shape has changed, and it's certainly more dry and barren. But otherwise, when I look at the birds and all the creatures, I see myself, that I have the same opportunity as they do, to live in what is a wonderful place. And we're not even sure what that is, but there seems to exist a beauty and type of magic in this realm. And I think if we would just adapt, either as individuals or collectively, we could really enjoy this place and not be trapped and depressed, but really enjoy it. And perhaps that's what this shift is pushing us towards. If this shift is even real, if it's not just something within myself. And if we pursue the old ways, not even really the old ways, the narrative ways, what has been taught to us as the recent way, we'll struggle. And if we can shift into what is real, what is really real in this place, then I think we can actually experience some kind of bliss or harmony. And that's it. I thank you so much for being here this week. I love you all, and I'll see you again soon.